You're driving, not fast, not recklessly. You're doing everything right. And then the car in front of you stops. And in the space between the moment your brain registers that and the moment your foot finds the brake, something deeply strange happens to time. The world goes thick and slow, like someone poured glycerin into the air. You see the gap between your bumper and theirs shrinking with a kind of horrible clarity. You notice the dent in their rear fender. You notice the color of their license plate frame. You have what feels like several uninterrupted seconds to think, this is going to be bad. Then the crunch. Then normal time resumes, snapping back like a rubber band released from a doorknob. The whole thing took maybe 3 seconds. You would swear on your life it was 30. Your brain just lied to you, and it was spectacular at it. Here's what everyone gets wrong first, because the wrong explanation is so much more satisfying than the true one. The popular story goes like this. In a crisis, your brain shifts into high gear and starts capturing more frames per second. A biological slow-motion camera, your nervous system upgrading to 4K at the moment you need it most. It's a good story. It's also completely false. Researchers actually tested this. They strapped accelerometers to subjects' wrists, devices sensitive enough to read numerical displays, then had those subjects do something that would genuinely terrify them. The logic was airtight. If your brain really was capturing more frames during fear, you'd be able to read a number flickering faster than normal perception allows. You'd see more. You'd process more. The results came back unambiguous. Temporal resolution, the actual frame rate of your perception, does not increase during threat, not even slightly. What you experience as slow motion isn't your brain speeding up. It's your memory lying to you about how long something took. That's a critical distinction. Hold on to it. What actually happens involves a small, ancient cluster of neurons sitting in your brainstem called the locus coeruleus. It sounds like a Roman emperor's vacation home, but what it does is considerably less relaxing. The moment your brain registers mortal threat, not stress, not embarrassment, not a hard conversation with your boss, but actual perceived death, this structure detonates a norepinephrine surge through your cortex like someone kicked over a jar of kerosene near an open flame. Your heart slams against your sternum. Your pupils dilate until the world goes hyper-sharp and slightly unreal. Your attention collapses inward to a needlepoint, cutting away everything irrelevant to survival. The locus coeruleus doesn't give you more time. It gives you more mind per second. Your thoughts accelerate. Not a little. Dramatically. Internal processing speed surges, while the external world continues at its normal, indifferent pace. And that mismatch, fast brain, normal clock, is what creates the illusion. You're not watching a slow film. You're watching a normal film while your internal commentary runs at triple speed. One skydiver's parachute malfunctioned at altitude. In the 150 seconds between the malfunction and landing, he later reported executing 20 distinct, deliberate decisions. That's not a panicked blur. That's a man thinking in overdrive while gravity maintained its usual schedule. His brain felt like it had hours. The clock said 2.5 minutes. And here's where it gets stranger. The slow-motion experience isn't even happening in real time. It's constructed afterward. What you perceive as time stretching during the event is actually your memory, post-crisis, inflating the duration based on how densely packed that window of processing was. Your brain looks back at the incident and essentially counts the cognitive receipts. All those compressed thoughts, all that heightened sensory detail, all that narrowed attention burning through information, and concludes that so much must have happened, so much must have been processed, that it must have taken longer than the clock recorded. Studies back this up with a number that should make you slightly uncomfortable. Survivors overestimate the duration of life-threatening events by 10 to 50%. You weren't given extra time. You were billed for time you didn't spend. Congratulations! Your brain is a fraudulent timekeeper. This matters beyond the intellectual curiosity of it, because the memory inflation has consequences you carry long after the incident closes. If you've ever replayed a near miss in your head, a car accident, a fall, a moment where something almost went catastrophically wrong, the version in your memory is stretched. It feels longer, more deliberate, more "you had time to do something" than the clock ever showed. That distortion can curdle into something toxic. You start interrogating your own choices during those seconds with a timeline that never existed. You had all that time, your memory insists. Why didn't you react differently? The answer is that you didn't have all that time. You had 3 seconds. Your norepinephrine just filed a fraudulent insurance claim on the duration. People who work through accident trauma with objective records, dashcam footage, event data recorders, medical timestamps, often describe a specific, disorienting moment of recalibration. The footage shows 12 seconds. Their memory insists on 45. Watching the real timeline doesn't erase the memory, but it does something important. It separates the event from the mythology the brain built around it. That separation matters. The inflated version feeds rumination. The real version is just physics and bad luck in 12 seconds. There's also a hard limit on when any of this activates, and most people don't know it. Routine anxiety doesn't trigger the locus coeruleus detonation. A difficult meeting doesn't do it. Dread about a difficult phone call doesn't do it. The time dilation effect requires one very specific ingredient: the genuine, visceral belief that you are about to die. Not that things might go badly, not that you're uncomfortable or overwhelmed. The brain has a surprisingly precise threshold for this, and until you cross it, the norepinephrine surge stays partial, the attention narrowing stays incomplete, and time continues to feel like time. Which means the thing people often describe as "everything went into slow motion during my job interview" is either a much milder version of the same machinery or, more likely, a retroactive narrative they've applied to a moment that simply felt high stakes. The real thing is unmistakable. You don't wonder if it's happening. Your body knows. There's something you can do with this knowledge that isn't obvious. The norepinephrine surge that creates the time distortion also creates something genuinely useful, a period of extraordinarily focused, purposeful cognition. Attention narrows to survival-relevant information with a precision your normal brain cannot replicate. Pilots and firefighters train specifically to work inside that state, using simulated threats to habituate the response, until the surge enhances performance rather than collapsing it into paralysis. The difference between someone who freezes in a crisis and someone who acts isn't the absence of the neurological storm. It's familiarity with the storm. If you've stood in that weather before, even in a controlled simulation, your brain has a template. The norepinephrine lands somewhere useful instead of flooding the floor. The slow motion wasn't a gift. It wasn't a superpower. It was a neurological receipt for how hard your brain worked in a window smaller than you'll ever remember it being. Your memory stretched the tape. The crisis didn't.